My name is Elena Voss. I'm 29 years old, and 3 years ago I discovered that blood doesn't always run thicker than greed. What you're about to hear isn't just a story about betrayal, it's about how I turned my brother's greatest theft into his ultimate destruction. But here's what nobody knows yet: this goes deeper than stolen blueprints and broken trust. There are connections you won't see coming, secrets that will make your skin crawl, and by the time I'm done talking, you'll understand why some revenge is worth waiting years to execute. Trust me when I say, you need to hear every single word until the very end, because what happened to my brother was just the beginning. Growing up in the Voss household meant living in perpetual second place. My older brother Marcus was everything my parents wanted in a child: charismatic, athletic, effortlessly popular. He played varsity football, dated the homecoming queen, and somehow managed to coast through school with decent grades despite never opening a book. Meanwhile, I spent my nights hunched over circuit boards and computer screens, teaching myself programming languages and electrical engineering through YouTube videos and library books. "Elena, dinner!" Mom would call from downstairs, and I'd reluctantly abandon my latest project, usually some modification to everyday electronics that made them work better, faster, more efficiently. "What's our little genius working on now?" Dad would ask with that patronizing smile he reserved for my hobbies. Not my passion, not my future, my hobbies. Marcus would smirk across the dinner table, probably trying to build a robot boyfriend since she can't get a real one. The laughter that followed always felt like glass in my chest, but I learned to swallow it down. They didn't understand that while Marcus was wasting his potential on popularity contests, I was building something real. Something that would matter. By the time I turned 16, I had already developed 3 minor innovations that caught the attention of my high school's engineering teacher, Mr. Peterson. He was the first adult who ever looked at my work and saw potential instead of just a weird hobby. "Elena, have you considered entering the state science fair?" he asked one afternoon as I demonstrated my latest creation, a battery optimization system that could extend smartphone battery life by 400%. "I don't know," I mumbled, suddenly shy under genuine praise. "It's probably not that impressive." "Not impressive?" Mr. Peterson's eyes widened. "Elena, if you can prove this works on a larger scale, you could be looking at patent applications. This could change everything." That night at dinner, I finally worked up the courage to share Mr. Peterson's enthusiasm with my family. "Mom, Dad, Mr. Peterson thinks my battery project could be really significant. He wants me to enter it in the state competition, and if I win, there might even be companies interested in." "That's nice, honey," Mom interrupted, not looking up from her phone. "Marcus, tell us about practice today. Coach Williams thinks you might get scouted by State University." And just like that, my potential patent application was dismissed in favor of Marcus's athletic achievements. Again. But Marcus was listening. I caught him watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read, something between curiosity and calculation. At the time, I thought it might have been pride. Now I know it was the first stirring of something much darker. The state science fair changed my life in ways I never expected. My battery optimization system didn't just win first place, it caught the attention of Dr. Sarah Chen, a representative from Innovatech Solutions, one of the biggest tech companies in the country. "Elena," Dr. Chen said, examining my project display with genuine excitement, "I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've never seen anything quite like this. The applications for your technology could revolutionize not just smartphones, but electric vehicles, medical devices, even aerospace technology." My hands were shaking as she handed me her business card. "I'd like to schedule a meeting with you and your parents to discuss a potential partnership. Innovatech is always looking for young talent, and your battery technology could be worth, well, let's just say it could be worth a considerable amount." When I told my parents about Dr. Chen's interest, something shifted in our house. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know about my little project. Marcus started asking detailed questions about how the technology worked, claiming he was just proud of his genius little sister. Mom began bragging to her friends about her daughter's million-dollar invention. Dad started talking about college funds and early retirement. For the first time in my life, I was the golden child. You know, Elena, Marcus said one evening as I worked on refining my prototype, you should probably document everything really carefully. Make sure you have all your research backed up and protected. I looked up from my soldering iron, surprised by his sudden interest in intellectual property law. Why? Just, with companies getting interested, you want to make sure no one can steal your ideas. How ironic those words would become. The meeting with Innovatech was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Dr. Chen wanted to see a full demonstration of the technology, complete with detailed technical specifications and scalability projections. I spent every free moment preparing, perfecting my presentation, and documenting every aspect of my innovation. Marcus began spending more time in my workshop, the converted garage space where I kept all my equipment. He asked intelligent questions, offered to help with organization, and even brought me coffee during my late-night preparation sessions. I was so touched by his sudden brotherly support that I never questioned why he was so interested in the technical details. "You're really something special, Elena," he said one night, watching me fine-tune the final prototype. "I always knew you were smart, but this is incredible. You're going to change the world." Those words meant everything to me. My whole life, I'd wanted nothing more than Marcus's approval, his recognition that I was worth something. Finally, it seemed like I had it. 2 days before the Innovatech meeting, I came home from school to find my workshop door ajar. That was strange. I always kept it locked, and I was the only one with a key. But nothing seemed disturbed, so I assumed I'd simply forgotten to secure it properly in my excitement. The next morning, I woke up with butterflies in my stomach. Today was the day I would present my work to Innovatech. Today was the day my life would change forever. But when I opened my workshop door, my blood turned to ice. Everything was gone. Not just missing, gone. Every prototype, every backup drive, every notebook filled with months of research and calculations. The specialized equipment I'd bought with money from my part-time job, the custom components I'd ordered from electronic suppliers, even the original sketches I'd made when the idea first came to me, all of it had vanished as if it had never existed. I stood in the empty space, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. This wasn't a burglary. Nothing else in the house had been touched. This was targeted, surgical, complete. "Mom! Dad!" I screamed, my voice cracking with panic and disbelief. They came running, and when they saw the empty workshop, Mom gasped and Dad's face went pale. "Elena, what happened? Where's all your equipment?" "I don't know." Tears were streaming down my face. "Everything's gone. All my research, all my prototypes, everything for the Innovatech meeting." "Did you check if maybe you moved something?" Mom suggested weakly. "Moved something? Mom, look around. There's nothing here." Dad was already on the phone with the police, but I knew it was hopeless. Whatever had happened here, whoever had done this, they knew exactly what they were looking for and how to take it without leaving a trace. Marcus appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes as if he'd just woken up. "What's all the shouting about?" When I told him what had happened, his face went through a performance of shock and sympathy that should have won him an Oscar. He put his arm around my shaking shoulders and said all the right things about how sorry he was, how we'd figure this out, how maybe I could recreate everything from memory. But I caught something in his eyes, just for a split second, that made my stomach drop. It was satisfaction, the look of someone whose plan had worked perfectly. The police came and went, filing a report that would never lead anywhere. The Innovatech meeting had to be canceled. Dr. Chen was understanding but firm. Without the technology to demonstrate, there was nothing to discuss. "I'm so sorry, Elena," she said over the phone. "If you can recreate your work, please don't hesitate to contact us. But you should know that the tech industry moves very quickly. If someone else develops similar technology in the meantime..." She didn't need to finish. I understood. My window of opportunity was closing, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together what had happened. The theft was too precise, too targeted. Someone had known exactly what to take and when to take it. Someone had known about the Innovatech meeting, about the value of my work, about the brief window when the workshop would be empty. Someone who had access to the house, Someone who knew my schedule, someone who had been asking very detailed questions about my technology. The realization hit me like a physical blow, stealing the breath from my lungs. Marcus. My own brother had destroyed my future, stolen my life's work, and watched me cry over the ruins of my dreams while comforting me with the same hands that had dismantled everything I'd built. But I couldn't prove it. I couldn't even voice my suspicions without sounding paranoid and grief-stricken. Marcus was the golden child, the beloved son, the one who could do no wrong. Who would believe that he was capable of such calculated cruelty? I spent the next few months trying to recreate my work from memory, but it was impossible. The optimization algorithm I developed had taken me nearly 2 years to perfect, involving thousands of small adjustments and refinements that I couldn't simply remember. Without my documentation and test results, I was starting from scratch with a fraction of the time and resources I'd had before. Meanwhile, life went on as if nothing had happened. Marcus continued to be the family favorite, heading off to state university on a partial football scholarship. Mom and Dad gradually stopped asking about my project, their brief interest in my potential fading as quickly as it had appeared. But I noticed things, small things that probably meant nothing to anyone else, but felt like puzzle pieces to me. Marcus had new equipment in his dorm room, expensive electronics that he claimed were gifts from his girlfriend's wealthy parents. He'd suddenly developed an interest in electrical engineering, even changing his major from business to applied sciences. He started talking knowledgeably about battery technology and energy storage systems, impressing professors and classmates with insights that sounded remarkably familiar. And then, 6 months after my workshop was robbed, I saw the patent application. I was browsing through the United States Patent and Trademark Office database, torturing myself by looking at battery technology patents, when I found it. Application number US 20XXXXXXXXXX, filed by Marcus Andrew Voss for Advanced Lithium-Ion Battery Optimization System. The technical description was my work, word for word, calculation for calculation, innovation for innovation. My brother had stolen my life's work and was trying to claim it as his own invention. I printed out every page of the application, my vision blurring with tears of rage and betrayal. There it was, in black and white legal language, proof that Marcus had not just destroyed my future, but was actively trying to profit from my innovations. But when I showed my parents the patent application, their reaction was the final knife in my back. "Elena, honey," Mom said with that same patronizing tone she'd used when I was a child explaining my latest invention, "you're being paranoid. Marcus wouldn't do something like that." "Look at the technical specifications," I pleaded. "These are my calculations, my research." "Sweetheart," Dad interjected gently, "battery technology is a big field. It's possible that Marcus came up with similar ideas independently. Just because you were working on something similar doesn't mean..." "Similar?" I could barely contain my fury. "This isn't similar. It's identical. He stole my work." "Elena," Dad's tone had shifted from gentle to stern, "your brother is at one of the best engineering schools in the country, working with world-class professors and researchers. Maybe you should consider the possibility that his education has given him access to resources and knowledge that helped him develop something advanced." The implication was clear. Marcus, with his superior education and natural brilliance, had simply outpaced his little sister's amateur tinkering. It didn't matter that I'd developed the technology first, that I'd been working on battery optimization since I was 16, that every calculation in his patent application had come from my stolen notebooks. I was just the weird little sister with her garage workshop and impossible claims. That night, something inside me broke. Not shattered. That would have been too clean, too final. Instead, it was more like a controlled demolition, where the structure remained standing for a moment before collapsing inward on itself, leaving only the foundation and a burning determination to rebuild something stronger. My brother had stolen my invention. My parents had chosen him over truth. The system I'd trusted to protect intellectual property had failed me. But I was still here. I was still the mind that had created that technology in the first place. And if Marcus thought he could destroy me and profit from my work without consequences, he was about to learn exactly how wrong he was. I spent the rest of that night staring at the patent application, memorizing every detail, every lie, every theft. And as the sun rose over the house where I'd never again be valued or believed or loved, I began to plan. Marcus had taught me that family meant nothing when money was involved. That trust was just another weakness to be exploited. That the innocent and naive would always be crushed by those willing to lie and steal and betray. Fine, I'd learned my lesson. Now it was time to teach him one. The first thing I did was disappear. Not literally. That would have been too suspicious, too dramatic. Instead, I became strategically invisible. I finished high school with perfect grades and no fanfare pack, applied to colleges across the country under my legal name Elena Marie Voss, and began the careful process of erasing my connection to the stolen technology. My parents were relieved when I announced I'd received a full scholarship to MIT for electrical engineering. "That's wonderful, honey," Mom said, though I could tell she was already thinking about how this would affect their empty nest plans. "You'll finally be able to pursue your interests at a proper level." Marcus was home for summer break, bronze from his Florida internship, and full of stories about his engineering courses. He congratulated me with what seemed like genuine pride, even offering advice about surviving the workload at a top-tier engineering school. "You're gonna love it, Alina," he said, his arm around my shoulders, in a gesture that once would have meant the world to me. "Finally, you'll be around people who understand your weird genius brain." I smiled and thanked him, playing the part of the grateful little sister heading off to find her place in the world. But inside, I was cataloging every word, every expression, every lie he told with such practiced ease. Because I'd spent the past year doing more than just planning. I'd been investigating. The patent application Marcus had filed was just the beginning. Through careful research and strategic information gathering, I discovered that he wasn't working alone. His internship in Florida had actually been with a startup called Voss Tech Solutions, a company he'd founded with money from an unnamed private investor. Voss Tech's first product was set to launch in 18 months, a revolutionary battery optimization system that would change the way the world thinks about energy storage. The marketing materials were slick, professional, and built entirely on technology stolen from my workshop. But here's what Marcus didn't know. I'd never stopped innovating. While he was busy filing patent applications and playing entrepreneur with my stolen work, I'd been developing something new. Something better. Something that would make his theft look like a child's toy compared to what I could really do. My MIT acceptance letter had been legitimate, but I'd deferred enrollment for a year. Instead, I'd used my college fund to rent a small apartment across town under an assumed name and equipped it with a workshop that made my old garage setup look primitive. Working 18 hours a day, fueled by rage and brilliant clarity, I'd pushed past the boundaries of what I'd thought possible. Well, the new technology wasn't just an improvement on my original battery optimization system. It was a complete revolution. While Marcus's stolen version could extend battery life by 400%, my new innovation could increase efficiency by 2,000% while reducing size and weight by 60%. But more importantly, it was designed with something my original work had lacked: a kill switch. Every battery system built with my new technology would include a hidden subroutine buried so deep in the code that no one would ever think to look for it. A subroutine that could be activated remotely to cause what would appear to be catastrophic system failure, but would actually be a carefully orchestrated demonstration of exactly who controlled the real technology. Marcus thought he'd stolen my life's work. In reality, he'd stolen the rough draft. Well, the real masterpiece was still mine, and I was about to use it to destroy everything he'd built on my foundation. But revenge, I'd learned, wasn't just about the destination. It was about the journey. And I intended to make Marcus's journey as psychologically devastating as possible. The first phase of my plan began 3 weeks before I was supposed to leave for MIT. I'd been monitoring Voss Tech's communications through a combination of social engineering and some light hacking. Nothing illegal, just accessing information that Marcus had been careless enough to leave vulnerable. I knew that Voss Tech was in final negotiations with 3 major manufacturers who wanted to license the battery technology. The deals were worth approximately $50 million in combined initial payments, with royalties that could reach into the hundreds of millions. Marcus was about to become very, very rich off my stolen work. That's when I introduced myself to the competition. Dr. Sarah Chen, the Innovatech representative who'd been interested in my original work, was surprised to hear from me after nearly 2 years of silence. Elena, I was so sorry to hear about what happened with your workshop. I always wondered what became of your battery technology. Actually, Dr. Chen, that's why I'm calling. I've been continuing my research, and I've developed something that I think will interest you. Something that makes my original work look like a beta test. The meeting was set for the following week, at Innovatech's headquarters in San Francisco. I flew out with a single carry-on bag containing my laptop, a few prototypes, and documentation that represented 2 years of the most focused, brilliant work of my life. Dr. Chen's reaction exceeded even my wildest expectations. Elena, this is... She paused, studying the technical readouts from my demonstration. This isn't just an improvement, it's a complete paradigm shift. Are you certain these efficiency numbers are accurate? I'm certain. And Dr. Chen, I should mention, there's another company trying to bring a competing product to market, something they claim is revolutionary battery technology. I showed her Marcus's Vostech marketing materials, watching her expression change as she realized what she was looking at. This technology you're showing me, she said slowly, it's similar to what Vostech is promising, but your version is superior in every measurable way, I finished. Vostech's system is based on preliminary research that was stolen from me 2 years ago. What they're calling revolutionary is actually outdated compared to what I've developed since then. Dr. Chen was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. Finally, she looked up at me with an expression I recognized from my high school science fair, genuine excitement mixed with shrewd business calculation. Elena, if you're willing to grant Innovatech exclusive licensing rights to this technology, I'm prepared to offer you a signing bonus of $20 million, with royalty rates that could make you one of the wealthiest inventors of your generation. I pretended to consider her offer carefully, though my answer had been decided months ago. I accept, Dr. Chen, but I have 2 conditions. Name them. First, I want the announcement of our partnership to be made exactly 6 weeks from today. Not sooner, not later. That's specific. May I ask why? I smiled, thinking of Marcus's timeline and the final negotiations he'd be conducting with his potential licensees. Personal reasons. What matters is that 6 weeks will give Innovatech time to prepare for production and marketing while ensuring we beat any competing products to market. And the second condition? I want to be personally involved in the competitive analysis of rival technologies. Specifically, I want to be part of the team that evaluates and responds to Vostech's claims about their battery system. Dr. Chen raised an eyebrow. That's an unusual request for a technology licensor. I take competition very seriously, I said, especially when that competition is based on stolen work. The contract was signed that afternoon. For the first time in 2 years, I felt something other than rage and betrayal. I felt anticipation. Marcus had no idea what was coming. The next phase of my plan required patience and precision. Over the following month, I carefully monitored Vostech's progress while publicly remaining the supportive little sister heading off to college. Marcus had dropped out of State University to focus on Vostech full-time, a decision that had caused some tension with our parents until he explained the potential value of his revolutionary invention. Suddenly, his choice to abandon his education in favor of entrepreneurship became another example of his brilliant instincts and natural business acumen. I always knew Marcus had something special, Dad bragged to his golf buddies. Takes real vision to see an opportunity like this and have the courage to pursue it. Mom started planning how she'd spend her share of Marcus's inevitable fortune, talking about European vacations and early retirement as if the money was already in the bank. I smiled and nodded and played the part of the proud little sister, all while watching my brother build his empire on my stolen foundation. But I was also watching for the signs I knew were coming. The small cracks that would appear as Marcus tried to scale technology he didn't actually understand. The technical questions from potential licensees that would expose the gaps in his knowledge. The increasing pressure as launch dates approached and the reality of bringing a stolen product to market began to set in. Marcus, for all his charisma and confidence, was not actually an inventor. He was a thief who'd stolen something brilliant and convinced himself he could fake his way through the technical complexities. As Vostek's launch date approached, that delusion was about to meet reality in spectacular fashion. The first sign came during a family dinner 2 weeks before my scheduled departure for MIT. Marcus seemed unusually quiet, picking at his food and checking his phone constantly. "Everything okay with the company, honey?" Mom asked. "Yeah, it's fine," Marcus said, but his smile was strained. "Just some last-minute technical challenges. Nothing I can't handle." "Technical challenges?" I asked innocently. "What kind?" Marcus hesitated, and I could see him calculating how much he could explain without revealing his ignorance. Just optimization stuff, scaling issues, the kind of problems every tech startup faces. But I could see the panic behind his eyes. Marcus was discovering what every thief learns eventually. Stolen goods are worthless if you don't know how to use them. The second sign came the following week, when I overheard a phone conversation between Marcus and someone he addressed as Dr. Martinez. "I understand the timeline pressure," Marcus was saying, his voice tight with stress, "but I need more time to refine the core algorithm. The efficiency rates aren't matching our projections, and if we launch with suboptimal performance..." There was a long pause as he listened to Dr. Martinez's response. "No, I can't just release the technical documentation to your team," Marcus said sharply. "This is proprietary technology. I need to maintain control over the development process." Another pause, longer this time. "Look, I'm the inventor here. I know this technology better than anyone. Just give me another month to work out the bugs." When he hung up, Marcus looked like he'd aged 5 years. The golden boy who'd always coasted on charm and confidence was discovering that some problems couldn't be solved with a winning smile and natural charisma. The third and final sign came 3 days before I was supposed to leave for college. I was in my room packing when I heard shouting from downstairs. Not the usual family bickering, but real anger and panic. I crept to the top of the stairs and listened. "What do you mean, they're pulling out?" Dad's voice, tight with disbelief. "The licensing deal with NextGen Corp fell through," Marcus replied, and I could hear the devastation in his tone. "They ran independent tests on the prototype and said the performance doesn't match our claims." "But you said the technology was proven," Mom interjected. "You said you'd already solved all the technical problems." "I thought I had," Marcus snapped. "The original research was solid, but scaling it up has been more complicated than expected." "Well, what about the other companies? Surely one of them will still..." "They're all connected, Mom. Word travels fast in the tech industry. If NextGen says our technology doesn't work as advertised, the other potential licensees are going to run their own tests. And if those tests show the same problems..." The silence that followed was heavy with implications. "How bad is this, Marcus?" Dad asked quietly. "Bad. Without the licensing deals, Vostek doesn't have enough funding to continue development, and I've already committed to launch dates and marketing campaigns based on technology that I can't seem to make work properly." "Can't you just hire more engineers? Bring in experts to help solve the technical problems? With what money? And besides, the core algorithm it's more complex than I initially realized. I might have overestimated my ability to refine it independently." I had to cover my mouth to keep from laughing. Marcus was finally discovering the difference between stealing someone else's work and actually understanding it. My original battery optimization system had been the result of years of iterative development, thousands of failed experiments, and insights that could only come from truly comprehending the underlying physics and engineering principles. Marcus had the blueprint, but he didn't have the mind that created it. And now that limitation was about to destroy everything he'd built. But I wasn't done with him yet. Not even close. That night, I made a phone call to Dr. Chen at Innovatech. "Elena, how are the final preparations going? We're all very excited about the announcement next week." "Actually, Dr. Chen, I wanted to give you a heads up about something." It looks like Vostech is having some serious technical difficulties with their competing product. Oh? What kind of difficulties? From what I've heard, their licensing deals are falling through because their technology doesn't perform as advertised. Apparently, there are significant problems with scalability and efficiency that they can't seem to solve. That's interesting. Do you think this will affect our market position? I think it makes our announcement even better timed, I said. Vostech has been generating a lot of buzz in the industry, but if their technology proves to be faulty, it will leave a vacuum that Innovatech will be perfectly positioned to fill. Elena, you continue to impress me with your strategic thinking. I think you're right. This could work very much in our favor. After I hung up, I sat in my childhood bedroom looking around at the remnants of my old life. In a few days, I would leave for MIT and begin the next phase of my journey. But first, I had one final gift to give my brother. The anonymous email I sent to the 3 major tech publications was simple and factual. Vostech Solutions, the startup promising revolutionary battery technology, has lost its primary licensing deals due to technical failures and performance issues that the company cannot resolve. Sources close to the company indicate that the core technology may have been based on stolen research that the founders do not fully understand. Vostech's launch date has been indefinitely postponed, and the company is reportedly seeking emergency funding to continue operations. The articles went live the next morning. By noon, Vostech's website had crashed from traffic, and Marcus's phone was ringing constantly with calls from investors, journalists, and very angry potential business partners. But the real masterpiece was still to come. Because in exactly 5 days, Innovatech would announce their partnership with a brilliant young inventor named Elena Voss, revealing battery technology that made Vostech's claims look primitive by comparison. The industry would suddenly understand that there were 2 related technologies: the sophisticated, cutting-edge system licensed by Innovatech, and the inferior, stolen version that Vostech had tried and failed to bring to market. Marcus would realize that his little sister hadn't just survived his betrayal. She'd used it as motivation to create something far beyond his ability to steal or understand. And then, when he was at his lowest point, when Vostech was collapsing and his reputation was in ruins, I would activate the kill switch buried in every implementation of my original technology and show the world exactly what happened when someone tried to build an empire on stolen foundations. The long game was almost over, but the most satisfying moves were still to come. The Innovatech announcement went live at exactly 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on a Tuesday morning that would later be remembered as the day the battery industry changed forever. I watched the press release go out from my dorm room at MIT, where I'd been enrolled for exactly 1 week. My roommate was at her morning psychology class, so I had the room to myself as I opened my laptop and refreshed the major tech news sites. The headlines began appearing within minutes. Innovatech announces partnership with teen genius behind revolutionary battery technology. 19-year-old inventor Elena Voss receives $20 million for technology that could replace lithium-ion standard. MIT freshman's battery innovation promises 2,000% efficiency increase. But my favorite was from TechCrunch. The real battery revolution. How Elena Voss's technology makes other breakthrough claims look obsolete. That last headline included a not-so-subtle reference to Vostech's recent troubles, complete with a side-by-side comparison of the 2 technologies' claimed performance metrics. The article made it devastatingly clear that while Vostech promised incremental improvements, Innovatech was delivering transformational change. My phone started ringing at 9:15 a.m. The caller ID showed Mom. Elena, are you seeing this? There are articles online saying you've invented some kind of revolutionary battery technology. Yes, Mom. I signed a licensing deal with Innovatech last month, but that's impossible. You're just starting college. And didn't your workshop get robbed 2 years ago? I rebuilt everything, Mom, and I made it better. There was a long silence. Then, Elena, these articles are saying you received $20 million. That's correct. $20 million? Plus royalties. Another silence, longer this time. I could practically hear my mother's brain trying to process this information. Honey, why didn't you tell us about this? The question I'd been waiting for. The moment when my family would finally understand what they'd dismissed, what they'd failed to protect, what they'd chosen to ignore in favor of supporting the son who'd stolen from their daughter. I tried to tell you, Mom. 2 years ago, when I was preparing for my first meeting with Innovatech. But someone destroyed my workshop and stole all my research before I could demonstrate the technology. But if your work was stolen, how did you? I recreated it. And then I improved it far beyond what I'd originally developed. The technology that was stolen from me was just the beginning, not the finished product. I could hear my mother breathing heavily. Elena, are you saying that Marcus's company is built on the preliminary work that was stolen from me? Yes. But Mom, here's the interesting part. I've continued developing the technology, and what Innovatech is licensing is so far advanced beyond my original work that it makes Marcus's version look like a child's science project. The line went quiet for so long that I thought the call had dropped. Mom? I'm here. Her voice was small, uncertain. Elena, are you absolutely certain about this? I'm certain that someone with access to our house, knowledge of my work, and inside information about my timeline stole my research and used it to start a competing company. I'm certain that this person convinced our family to dismiss my claims and support their venture instead. And I'm certain that their stolen technology is about to be completely obsoleted by what I've accomplished since then. Elena? Mom's voice cracked. If what you're saying is true, then Marcus will need to explain to his investors and business partners why his revolutionary technology is actually a inferior version of something his little sister developed in high school. I hung up the phone and checked the Vostech website. It had been down for maintenance since the tech journalism stories broke, but their social media accounts were being flooded with questions about the relationship between their technology and the Innovatech announcement. At 11:30 a.m., my phone rang again. This time, the caller ID showed Marcus. I let it go to voicemail. At 11:45 a.m., he called again. Again, I let it ring. The third call came at 12:15 p.m., and this time I answered. Hello, Marcus. Elena, what the hell is going on? His voice was tight with panic and something else, the first hint of understanding that his world was about to collapse. I'm not sure what you mean. Don't play dumb with me. These articles about you and Innovatech, they're saying you've developed advanced battery technology, the same kind of technology that Vostech is based on. Are they? I haven't had a chance to read all the coverage yet. Elena, listen to me very carefully. I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to understand that there are legal issues here. Patent protections, intellectual property rights. You mean the patent application you filed for technology stolen from my workshop? The silence that followed was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. Elena, I don't know what you think happened, but I think my own brother destroyed my workshop, stole my research, and used it to start a company while watching me cry over the ruins of my dreams. I think he convinced our parents that I was paranoid and delusional when I tried to expose what he'd done. And I think he's about to discover that stealing someone's rough draft doesn't make you an inventor. Another long silence. When Marcus spoke again, his voice had changed. The panic was still there, but underneath it was something colder, more calculating. You can't prove any of that. Can't I? Elena, even if what you're claiming were true, which I'm not admitting, you'd have a very difficult time proving theft of technology that you never properly documented or protected. You're right, Marcus. I would have had trouble proving the theft of my original work. But here's what's interesting about the situation we're in now. I paused, letting the tension build. The technology I've licensed to Innovatech is so far advanced beyond what was stolen from me that it doesn't matter anymore. Your company is trying to bring an inferior product to market, and the industry is about to see exactly how inferior it really is. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that Vostech's licensing deals fell through because your technology doesn't work as advertised. I'm talking about the fact that you can't solve the scalability problems because you don't actually understand the underlying principles. And I'm talking about the fact that in about 6 hours, Innovatech is going to demonstrate technology that makes your stolen work look like a high school science project. I could hear Marcus breathing heavily on the other end of the line. You planned this, he said finally. I survived this, Marcus. There's a difference. Elena, listen to me. We're family. Whatever problems we've had in the past, whatever misunderstandings. Misunderstandings? I laughed. And even I was surprised by how cold it sounded. Marcus, you destroyed my workshop. You stole 2 years of my work. You watched me cry and comforted me while knowing exactly what you'd done. You convinced our parents that I was crazy when I tried to tell them the truth. And now you want to call it a misunderstanding? I can explain. No, you can't. Because there's no explanation that makes what you did acceptable. There's no justification for betraying your own sister's trust and stealing her future. Elena, please, just tell me what you want. Money? A share of Vostech? I can make this right. You can't make this right, Marcus. What you can do is watch what happens when someone builds a company on stolen foundations and then discovers that the original architect is still building. I hung up before he could respond. At 2 p.m., Innovatech held a press conference in San Francisco. Dr. Chen introduced me via video call from my MIT dorm room, and I spent 30 minutes explaining the technical specifications of my battery technology to a room full of journalists, analysts, and industry experts. The questions were sophisticated and detailed, exactly the kind of technical deep dive that would expose any fraud or exaggeration. But I'd been living and breathing this technology for years, Pat, and I answered every question with the confidence that comes from genuine expertise. Ms. Voss, asked a reporter from Wired, there are other companies claiming to have developed revolutionary battery technology. How does your innovation compare to competitors like Vostech Solutions? I smiled, having prepared for this exact question. I can't speak to the specifics of other companies' claims, but I can tell you that my technology represents a complete paradigm shift in energy storage. Any system based on older approaches to battery optimization, even approaches that might have seemed revolutionary a few years ago, will be fundamentally limited by their underlying assumptions. Are you suggesting that Vostech's technology is based on outdated approaches? I'm suggesting that true innovation requires understanding the deep principles of what you're trying to accomplish. If someone is working from incomplete knowledge or outdated foundations, they'll never be able to achieve the kind of breakthrough that genuine research can deliver. The subtext was clear to anyone paying attention. There was original research, and there were copies of original research, and the market was about to see the difference. At 4 p.m., my phone started ringing again. This time it was Dad. Elena, I just got off the phone with Marcus. He's very upset about these articles. I'm sure he is. Honey, he's saying that there might be some confusion about the development of this battery technology. He's concerned that there could be legal complications if there are competing claims about who invented what. Dad, are you asking me to withdraw my patent applications and licensing agreements to protect Marcus's feelings? No, of course not. Elena, if there's any possibility that this could hurt Marcus's company, maybe you could find a way to work together instead of competing. The loyalty was breathtaking. Even now, with overwhelming evidence that Marcus had built his company on stolen work, my father's first instinct was to protect his golden child and ask me to make sacrifices for Marcus's benefit. Dad, Marcus's company is failing because it's based on technology he doesn't understand and can't properly implement. That's not my fault, and it's not my responsibility to fix. But Elena, he's your brother. He was my brother when he destroyed my workshop too. That didn't stop him from stealing everything I'd worked for. You don't know for certain that Marcus... Dad, I know. I've known for 2 years. And now the whole industry is going to know too. At 6 p.m., Innovatech released the technical demonstration videos that would change everything. The videos showed my battery technology in action across multiple applications: smartphones, electric vehicles, medical devices, and aerospace systems. In every case, the performance metrics were exactly as advertised: 2,000% efficiency improvements, 60% size and weight reductions, and stability that exceeded anything previously achieved in energy storage. But more importantly, The videos included detailed technical explanations that demonstrated the sophisticated engineering principles underlying the innovation. Anyone with expertise in battery technology could see that this wasn't incremental improvement. It was revolutionary advancement that could only come from years of dedicated research and development. The industry response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, Innovatech's stock price had jumped 40%, and 6 major manufacturers had announced their intention to negotiate licensing deals. Meanwhile, Vostech's social media accounts were being flooded with questions about how their revolutionary technology compared to the Innovatech system, and whether their recent licensing failures were related to the superior performance of competitive products. At 8 p.m., Marcus called again. "Elena, we need to talk. I think we've said everything we need to say." "No, we haven't. I need to see you. In person." "Why?" "Because I need to explain what really happened, and I need to understand what you're planning to do next." There was something different in his voice. Not just panic now, but a kind of desperate calculation that made me wary. "What I'm planning to do next is succeed, Marcus. Something you made much harder 2 years ago, but not impossible." "Elena, please. I'm driving up to MIT tonight," Asin said. "Just give me 30 minutes to explain my side of this." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop near campus the next morning. Not because I wanted to hear his excuses, but because I was curious about what kind of story he'd constructed to justify what he'd done. The coffee shop was crowded with students cramming for midterm exams, providing enough background noise for a private conversation. Marcus looked terrible, hollow-eyed and unshaven, like he hadn't slept in days. "You look like hell," I said, sitting across from him at a corner table. "Elena, I need you to understand something. What happened with your workshop? It wasn't what you think." "Really? Then explain it to me." Marcus stared into his coffee cup for a long moment before speaking. "I didn't steal your work to hurt you. I stole it to save it." The audacity of the lie was breathtaking. Save it? "Elena, you were about to give your technology away to Innovatech for basically nothing. A meeting with some corporate executives who would have buried your innovation in their R&D department and paid you a tiny fraction of what it was really worth. So you decided to steal it instead?" "I decided to protect it, to make sure it got the development and investment it deserved. Vostech was supposed to be our company, Elena. Yours and mine together." "Ours? You never mentioned that when you were filing patent applications in your name only." Marcus leaned forward, his eyes intense with what I now recognized as his practiced sincerity. "That was just for legal protection. I was going to bring you in as co-founder once we had the initial funding secured. I wanted to surprise you with proof that your little sister's weird hobby could actually make us both rich. By destroying my workshop and watching me cry about my stolen dreams? I didn't know it would hurt you that much. I thought you'd be able to recreate the work easily, and then I'd reveal the plan and we'd celebrate together." The lie was so elaborate, so carefully constructed, that I almost admired its audacity. Marcus had had 2 years to develop this narrative, to create a version of events where he was the misunderstood hero trying to protect his little sister's interests. So, when I accused you of theft, when I showed Mom and Dad your patent application, why didn't you reveal this magnificent plan then? Because Vostech was at a critical stage of development. I couldn't risk having the technology tied up in family disputes when we were so close to major breakthroughs. Breakthroughs that you've been unable to achieve because you don't actually understand the technology you stole. Marcus's facade cracked slightly. The scaling issues are more complex than I initially anticipated. That's why I need your help now, Elena. Together, we can make Vostech successful and both profit from your innovations. My innovations that you've spent 2 years claiming as your own work? Elena, I'm offering you a partnership. 50-50 split of everything. We can tell the industry that we've been collaborating all along, that the Innovatech deal was just a negotiating tactic to increase Vostech's value. I stared at him across the table, marveling at his ability to reconstruct reality to serve his needs. In Marcus's version of events, his theft became protection, his lies became strategy, and his failures became opportunities for family cooperation. Marcus, Do you actually believe what you're telling me? I believe that we're family, and family should work together instead of destroying each other. You destroyed me 2 years ago. What I'm doing now is succeeding despite what you did, not because of it. Elena, please. Vostek is going to collapse without your help. I've invested everything. My college fund, money from investors, even a loan against mom and dad's house. That last detail hit me like a physical blow. You borrowed against our parents' house? It was supposed to be temporary, just bridge financing until the major licensing deals came through. The licensing deals that fell through because your stolen technology doesn't work properly? Marcus's shoulders sagged. Yes. So if Vostek fails, mom and dad lose their house? Unless we find a way to make this work. Elena, I know I made mistakes, but our parents shouldn't have to pay for them. And there it was, the final manipulation. Marcus had stolen my work, destroyed my dreams, and convinced our family that I was delusional. Now he was trying to use our parents' financial security as leverage to force me into partnership with him. You bastard, I said quietly. Elena, you absolute bastard. You stole from me, lied to me, and now you've put our parents' home at risk, and you want me to save you? I want us to save each other. I stood up, looking down at my brother with a mixture of disgust and pity. Marcus, I'm going to make you an offer, one time only. His eyes lit up with desperate hope. I'm going to give you exactly 30 days to find a way to save Vostek without my help. Sell the company, find new investors, pivot to different technology. I don't care what you do, but you have 1 month to solve this problem yourself. Elena, that's impossible. The industry knows that my technology is inferior to yours now. No one is going to invest in Vostek after the Innovatech announcement. Then you'd better get creative. What happens after 30 days? I smiled, and even I was surprised by how cold it felt. After 30 days, I implement the final phase of my plan, Seth, the phase that will make it very clear to everyone exactly what happens when you build a company on stolen foundations. What are you talking about? You'll find out, Marcus. But I will give you one hint. The technology you stole from me wasn't just a battery optimization system. It was a beta test for something much more sophisticated. And every implementation of my original work, including every system that Vostek has developed, includes features that you never knew existed. Marcus went pale. Elena, what did you do? I protected my real innovations, Marcus. The same way you claimed you were protecting them when you stole my work. I walked away, leaving my brother sitting alone in the coffee shop with the wreckage of his lies, and the growing realization that his brilliant little sister had been playing a game he'd never even known existed. 30 days to save himself. The countdown had begun. 29 days after my meeting with Marcus, Vostek announced a partnership with a Chinese manufacturing consortium that would provide emergency funding in exchange for exclusive Asian market rights to their battery technology. I read the press release from my MIT dorm room while eating breakfast before my advanced materials engineering class. The deal was worth enough to keep Vostek operational and potentially save our parents' house. But it came with conditions that would essentially give the Chinese partners control over the company's future. Marcus had found a way to survive. Barely. But he'd also made a critical mistake. The manufacturing partnership required Vostek to provide complete technical documentation and working prototypes to their new Chinese partners for independent verification and production planning, which meant that within the next 48 hours, my stolen technology would be loaded onto systems in Shanghai, Beijing, and Shenzhen for comprehensive testing. Every single one of those systems would be running software that included my hidden subroutines. I opened my laptop and accessed the encrypted server I'd been maintaining for the past 2 years. The interface was simple, just a map showing every device running any version of my original battery technology, and a single red button labeled Execute. There were currently 847 active implementations scattered across the globe. Vostek's own testing labs, their partners' facilities, several academic research institutions that had licensed early versions of the technology, and now the Chinese manufacturing consortium's evaluation systems. All of them running code that I could control remotely. All of them about to demonstrate exactly what happened when you built an empire on stolen foundations. I checked my watch. 12:40 a.m. In exactly 13 minutes, I had advanced materials engineering, followed by applied physics, followed by my part-time research position with Dr. Harrison's nanotechnology lab. A perfectly normal day in the life of a successful MIT engineering student. But first, I had a phone call to make. Dr. Chen? It's Elena. I wanted to give you a heads up about something that's going to happen in the tech industry over the next few days. Elena, always a pleasure. What kind of something? You're going to start hearing reports about catastrophic failures in competing battery technologies. Systems that appeared to be working normally will suddenly experience what looks like fundamental design flaws. That sounds serious. Should Innovatech be concerned about our technology? Not at all. Our systems are built on completely different principles and don't share any of the vulnerabilities that are about to be exposed in inferior technologies. I see. And you know this how? Because I designed the original architecture that these failing systems are based on, and I included certain security features that the people who stole my work never discovered. There was a long pause. Elena, are you telling me that you've built some kind of kill switch into competing technologies? I'm telling you that I've always been very careful about protecting my intellectual property, and then that people who steal incomplete work often discover that they don't understand all the implications of what they've stolen. Elena, this could be seen as industrial sabotage. Dr. Chen, if someone steals your car and then discovers that it won't start because they don't have the key, is that sabotage or security? Another pause, longer this time. What exactly is going to happen? Systems based on stolen versions of my technology are going to fail in ways that demonstrate their fundamental instability. The failures will be dramatic enough to make it clear that these systems should never have been brought to market, but not dangerous enough to cause actual harm to people or property. And our technology will be completely unaffected because it's based on properly developed and thoroughly tested innovations rather than stolen prototypes. Elena, I need to ask this directly. Are you planning to sabotage Vostech's technology? I'm planning to reveal the truth about Vostech's technology. Whether that counts as sabotage depends on your perspective. I ended the call and checked my watch again. 11:58 a.m. Time for class. But as I walked across MIT's campus, my phone buzzed with a text message from Marcus. Elena, we need to talk. Something's wrong with the Chinese partnership tests. Please call me. I deleted the message without responding. The failures began at exactly 3:17 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I was in Dr. Harrison's lab calibrating equipment for a nanoparticle synthesis experiment when my phone started buzzing with news alerts. Chinese tech giant reports unprecedented failures in battery technology evaluation. Vostech partnership in jeopardy as testing reveals fundamental flaws in core technology. Multiple research institutions report simultaneous failures in experimental battery systems. By 4 p.m., the story had gone international. Research labs in Germany, Japan, Australia, and Canada were all reporting identical failures in battery systems that had been working perfectly for months. The failures followed the same pattern: sudden, catastrophic loss of efficiency followed by complete system shutdown, with diagnostic tests showing what appeared to be fundamental design flaws in the core optimization algorithms. The one thing all the failed systems had in common was that they were based on technology originally developed by Vostech Solutions. My phone rang at 4:23 p.m. Marcus, of course. Elena, what did you do? I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. Every system based on our technology just failed simultaneously. This isn't a coincidence. Simultaneous failures across multiple implementations usually indicate fundamental design flaws, Marcus. Maybe you should have spent more time understanding the technology before you tried to commercialize it. Elena, the Chinese partners are threatening to not only cancel the deal, but sue us for fraud. They're saying we knowingly provided them with defective technology. Did you? What? Did you knowingly provide them with defective technology? Because if you did, that would indeed be fraud. I provided them with the same technology that Vostech has been developing for 2 years. Technology that you stole from my workshop without understanding its limitations or security features. There was a long silence. Security features? What did you really think I was naive enough to develop revolutionary technology without protecting it against theft and misuse? Elena, what kind of security features? The kind that makes stolen technology unusable by people who don't have the proper authorization codes. You built a kill switch into your own invention? I built protection into my invention. The fact that you're calling it a kill switch suggests that you're finally understanding what you actually stole. Marcus was breathing heavily. Elena, you have to help me fix this. If Vostech collapses now, Mom and Dad will lose their house. Then you'd better find a way to fix it yourself. I can't. I don't understand the code well enough to reverse whatever you did. That's unfortunate, Marcus, but it's also not my problem. Elena, please. I know I made mistakes, but our parents shouldn't suffer for them. Our parents chose to support you instead of protecting me. They chose to dismiss my claims and enable your theft. They chose to let you risk their home on technology you'd stolen from their daughter. Those were their choices, Marcus. Just like stealing my work was yours. I hung up and turned off my phone. The next morning, I woke up to find that the Vostech story had become the lead technology news across every major outlet. Vostech technology revealed as fundamentally flawed after worldwide system failures. Stolen innovation. How one startup built an empire on defective technology. The Vostech scandal, when family betrayal meets corporate fraud. That last headline caught my attention. I clicked through to read the full article, which had been published by an investigative journalist who'd spent the past month piecing together the connection between Vostech's technology and my stolen research. The article was devastating in its thoroughness. It included interviews with former Vostech employees who confirmed that Marcus didn't understand the technical details of his own company's core product. It documented the timeline of my original research, the robbery of my workshop, and the suspicious similarities between Vostech's patent applications and my early work. It even included quotes from Dr. Chen at Innovatech, explaining how my advanced technology had evolved far beyond the preliminary research that Vostech had apparently stolen. But the most damaging part was the technical analysis showing that the worldwide system failures weren't random malfunctions. They were the result of embedded code that had been deliberately triggered to expose the stolen technology's fundamental instabilities. The article made it clear that someone had built the ultimate protection system into their original work, technology that would destroy itself if stolen and misused. By noon, Vostech's website was offline, their social media accounts had been suspended, and Marcus's phone was reportedly disconnected. But I wasn't done yet. At 2 p.m., I held a press conference via video call from MIT. The tech press had been requesting interviews all week, and I'd finally decided it was time to tell my story publicly. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me today. My name is Elena Voss, and I'm here to discuss the recent failures in battery technology that have been attributed to systems based on Vostech Solutions products. The questions came fast and pointed. Miss Voss, did you deliberately sabotage Vostech's technology? I didn't sabotage anything. I protected my intellectual property using security measures that I embedded in my original research. When that research was stolen and misused, those security measures activated automatically. Are you saying that Vostech stole your technology? I'm saying that someone with access to my workshop and knowledge of my work stole my research and used it to start a competing company. The recent system failures demonstrate what happens when stolen technology is implemented by people who don't understand its complete architecture. What is your relationship to Marcus Voss, the founder of Vostech? I paused, looking directly into the camera. Marcus Voss is my brother, and 2 years ago, he destroyed my workshop, stole my life's work, and watched me cry over the ruins of my dreams while comforting me with the same hands that had dismantled everything I'd built. The room went completely silent. When I tried to tell my family what had happened, they chose to believe Marcus instead of protecting me. When I showed them evidence of the theft, they dismissed it as the paranoid delusions of a jealous little sister. And when Marcus used my stolen work to start Vostech, they celebrated his brilliance and entrepreneurial vision. I could see reporters frantically taking notes, understanding that they were witnessing something unprecedented in the tech industry. The technology that Vostech claimed as revolutionary was actually the rough draft of my high school research project. While Marcus was building a company on my stolen work, I was developing the real innovation. The technology that Innovatech has now licensed for what will be the true revolution in energy storage. Miss Voss, what's your response to claims that your actions have destroyed Vostech and potentially ruined your brother's life? My response is that Marcus destroyed his own life when he chose theft over innovation, lies over integrity, and greed over family loyalty. What happened to Vostech this week wasn't sabotage. It was the inevitable result of building a company on stolen foundations. What about the investors who lost money in Vostech? What about your parents, who reportedly face financial difficulties due to the company's collapse? This was the question I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. Everyone who invested in Vostech was investing in stolen technology that the company's founder didn't understand and couldn't properly implement. They were victims of fraud, just like I was a victim of theft. As for my parents, I paused, feeling the weight of 2 years of betrayal and disappointment. My parents chose to support the son who stole from their daughter rather than the daughter who was trying to tell them the truth. They chose to risk their financial security on technology they knew was stolen, rather than supporting the innovation that was actually theirs to protect. I'm sorry they're facing consequences for those choices, but I'm not responsible for cleaning up the mess that Marcus created. The press conference continued for another 30 minutes, but those were the sound bites that would define the story. By evening, every major news outlet was running segments about the Silicon Valley sister, who had brought down her brother's fraudulent empire using technology he'd stolen from her. The reaction was swift and polarizing. Some people saw me as a brilliant inventor who had rightfully protected her work and exposed corporate fraud. Others viewed me as a vindictive sister who had destroyed her own family for the sake of revenge. But the tech industry's response was unambiguous. I was a genius who had played the longest possible game and won decisively. Investment offers poured in. Academic institutions offered research positions. Major corporations wanted to license not just my battery technology, but anything else I might be developing. Marcus, meanwhile, had disappeared entirely. Vostech's offices were closed. Its assets were being liquidated to pay creditors. And criminal investigations had been opened in 3 states regarding potential fraud and intellectual property theft. 3 days after the press conference, I received a letter delivered to my MIT dorm room. No return address, but I recognized Marcus's handwriting. Elena, you won. I hope you're satisfied. I know you probably don't care, but I want you to know that I never meant for things to go this far. When I took your research, I really did think I could make it work and then bring you in as a partner. I thought I was protecting your interests and maximizing the value of your innovation. I was wrong about everything. Wrong about my ability to understand your work, wrong about the tech industry, wrong about family loyalty, and wrong about the kind of person I thought I was. Mom and Dad are losing the house. They'll probably have to declare bankruptcy and move in with Aunt Sarah. I know you blame them for supporting me instead of believing you, but they're still our parents, and they're paying the price for trusting their son. I've been offered a job managing a small electronics repair shop in Portland. It's not much, but it's honest work, and it's probably what I deserve after everything I've done. I know you'll never forgive me, and I understand why. I betrayed you in the worst possible way, and I destroyed our family in the process. But I want you to know that I'm proud of what you've accomplished, even though I hate how my actions contributed to your success. You're brilliant, Elena. You always were. I was just too jealous and stupid to see it. I'm sorry for everything, Marcus P.S. There's something else you should know. The real reason I stole your work wasn't just greed or jealousy, it was fear. Fear that my little sister was going to surpass me in every way that mattered, and that everyone would finally see that the golden child was just ordinary, while the weird kid in the garage was actually special. I was right to be afraid, but wrong about everything else. I read the letter 3 times before folding it carefully and putting it in my desk drawer. Then I opened my laptop and began working on my next innovation, a revolutionary advancement in quantum computing that would make my battery technology look like a warm-up act. Because Marcus had been right about one thing: I was just getting started. But first, I had one final piece of business to attend to. I opened a new email and addressed it to my parents. Mom and Dad, I've been following the news about Vostek's bankruptcy and the situation with your house. I know this is a difficult time for you, and despite everything that's happened, I don't want you to lose your home because of Marcus's choices. I'm prepared to make you an offer. I will pay off the loan Marcus took against your house, clearing your debt and allowing you to keep your home. In exchange, I want two things. First, I want a written acknowledgement from both of you that Marcus stole my technology and that you were wrong to dismiss my claims and support his fraud. Second, I want you both to attend family counseling with me for 6 months to work through the damage that's been done to our relationships. If you're willing to accept these terms, the money will be transferred within 24 hours. If not, you're welcome to figure out your financial situation without any assistance from the daughter you chose not to believe or protect. The choice is yours. Elena. Outside my dorm room window, MIT's campus was bustling with students heading to evening classes and studies and study groups. Brilliant minds working on the next generation of human innovation, supported by institutions that valued intelligence and creativity over family politics and stolen glory. This was my world now. A world where merit mattered more than manipulation, where innovation was rewarded rather than stolen, where the weird kid in the garage could become the genius who changed everything. Marcus had taught me that family loyalty was a luxury I couldn't afford. That trust was a weakness to be exploited. That the innocent and naive would always be crushed by those willing to lie and steal and betray. He'd been right about all of it. But he'd also taught me something else. That revenge, properly executed, wasn't just about destroying your enemies. It was about becoming so successful that your victory made their betrayal irrelevant. I was 19 years old, worth over $50 million, and held patents on technology that would reshape entire industries. My former high school classmates were struggling through freshman year of college while I was revolutionizing energy storage and planning my next breakthrough in quantum computing. Marcus was managing an electronics repair shop in Portland. The math was simple, and the results spoke for themselves. But as I sat in my dorm room that night, working on equations that would eventually change the world, I realized something that chilled me more than any of Marcus's betrayals ever had. I felt nothing. No satisfaction from his downfall. No joy from my success. No pain from my family's destruction. Just a cold, calculating clarity that viewed every relationship as a potential threat and every innovation as a weapon to be carefully protected. Marcus had stolen my technology, but in the process, he'd also stolen something else. My ability to trust, to love, to believe that family meant anything more than shared DNA and mutual exploitation. I'd won everything I'd ever wanted. Recognition, wealth, success, revenge. But looking back at the wreckage of my family, I couldn't help but wonder who had really paid the highest price for Marcus's theft. The answer, I was beginning to suspect, was me. And that realization was more terrifying than any betrayal my brother could have engineered, because it meant that in saving myself from Marcus's destruction, I might have become something even worse than what he'd been. Something that couldn't be fixed with money or innovation or perfectly executed revenge. Something that might be broken forever. The kill switch I'd built into my stolen technology had worked exactly as designed, revealing the fundamental flaws in systems built on stolen foundations and destroying everything constructed with borrowed brilliance. But I was starting to understand that some kill switches, once activated, destroyed more than just their intended targets. Some destroyed everything, including the person who built them. The funny thing about revenge is that it always reveals who you really are underneath all the hurt and betrayal. I thought I was the innocent victim, the brilliant sister wronged by family greed. But Marcus's letter taught me something that chills me even now. We were both products of the same house, the same values, the same willingness to destroy others for our own gain. He stole my technology out of fear and jealousy. I destroyed our entire family out of calculated precision. So tell me, who was really the monster in this story?